30, Witchy, and Thriving. With me, Sally Nightmare. Hey, all you witches and ghouls, and welcome back to Tarot Sundays here on 30 Witchy and Thriving. And so we're going to continue these Tarot Sunday episodes where we left off last week, just continuing to dive into the Tim Burtons Nightmare Before Christmas tarot deck. And we will also be using the guidebook that came with this deck as well. And I will provide all of that information in the description below. Got to give credit to who deserves it. And so as you guys know, this is the deck that I have been learning tarot with, along with some help of some additional resources and books. And keep in mind, again, that this is a theme deck where most people do start with a more traditional type deck. And so just keep that in mind when listening to these episodes. Eventually I will stop saying that, but I just want to make sure, since we are still early on in these episodes, that you guys know that. And so for today as well, you'll see that our format is a little bit different for the video as well. So let me know what you think at the end, and if this is something that you guys like with a visual aid, so that way you're not just looking at my face the whole time. Alrighty, so let's jump right into it. We are going to start off with needle cards today. And so in traditional tarot, these would be your sword cards. And so needle cards, they are representative, of our minds, our intellect, power, judgment, and our personal beliefs, and so when reading any type of needle card, you want to keep that in mind as into topics that they relate to. These tarot cards are also known as air cards. And so think air, your ideas, thoughts, communication, conflicts. So just like the air itself is invisible, our thoughts and the inside of our minds, they are invisible. Nobody can physically see our thoughts except for us. And again, that's our imaginations putting those thoughts together. And so, they're flux, they are swift, they change movements kind of based upon a time's notice or, what have you. And so when you're thinking of air or our thoughts, we associate this with communication. Think birds. You're outside sitting on your step and you just hear birds chirping. That chirping that you're hearing is, yes, a beautiful song that you're hearing, but it is the birds communicating with each other across the yard, across the neighborhood, or however far the distance is. And so these birds carry messages as the air carries messages. And so when you are focusing your thoughts, they can become very sharp. They can cut through, they can penetrate, it brings you power. Thus, that's where you get your needle, sharp point, or your sword. It's that stabbing penetration that's going on when you're thinking of your needle cards, your air cards. And so keep that all in mind when we move into the rest of today's video, when we talk about the upright and the reverse positions of our example card. And so today our example card is going to be the 9 of Needles. And so let's get right into it. All right, so today's sample card, which was pre-pulled from the deck, not as a pull to read anybody's specific tarot, but just as an example card, is going to be the 9 of Needles. So this is the physical card in my hand here, but I did provide imaging so that way you're able to see the card the entire time I'm talking, along with what the card may look in some traditional type decks with the swords. So again, this week's example card is the 9 of Needles. So I'll go ahead and we'll put this over here in a safe place. And so, like always, we'll start by reading from the handbook here. We'll kind of move through and then we will switch to what it means in the reverse. So, upright from the guidebook that comes with my deck here. Nightmares, worries, fear. The Nine of Needles shows up when you are feeling dread. Muster your courage and face your fears. You might just find that the clown with the tearaway face is not as scary in the light of day. And so, kind of just from the takeaway from reading out of the deck book before we get into kind of what it means, when I first read that, what I interpreted it as was okay, yeah, you have some stuff going on. You may be in a bad spot, but you have to move forward and kind of take that, whatever topic is happening, and try to move past it and grow as an individual. And so when you kind of think of some keywords that are associated with that upright card, think like worry, nightmares, anxiety, fear, guilt, shame. And so again, that is that whatever topic or whatever scenario that's going on in your life that is hard. So you may be like worried or scared, anxious, about something that's changing in your life. The unknown. You don't know you had some weird event happen, and so now you don't know what's going to happen next. And so that change is kind of bringing up all these feelings. And so like I said, you kind of have to look at like the good, the light in the situation, kind of try to find what anchors you to the here and the now. That's going to be your support through whatever this change may be. And you kind of want to ask yourself when the card is in that upright position, like what's keeping you awake? What has you worried? What's causing this feeling? And kind of a helpful tool you can do when you're kind of looking within yourself. Think about some of the past worries that you've had. What topic did you worry about? Thought all these different outcomes was going to happen. And then make that list and think, okay, hey, which of these worries actually came true during whatever situation it was in the past? And take that as a way to say, okay, you made a list of 10 things. 3 things came true, 7 things didn't. And so try to kind of use that balance, that scale as to, okay, am I just making scary, scenarios up, or is this an actual real possibility of, said situation? And when you're feeling like this as well, in any type of situation, when you're feeling down or anything, try not to isolate yourself. If you need to take, a day or two, take a breath, that's fine, but you don't want to completely isolate yourself off. When you isolate yourself, it can be hard to, ask those questions, pinpoint the problem, and kind of help yourself work through those. So again, pending situation, when you pull the card up, right, you kind of want to connect to that anchor, kind of find your support system, and then you want to kind of face your fears, and just kind of staying in the present and trying to work through this particular issue. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, kind of like a very depressing card, but it doesn't necessarily have to be depressing. Okay, you may be worried about, let's say, something pretty mundane. So you're worried about if the earrings you're choosing for, the party you're going to impress your boss is going to say the wrong thing or have a wrong statement, something like that. Can be something very mundane. It does not necessarily have to be like a big, huge life-altering event. So kind of keep that in mind. These cards kind of have a high and a low. It also depends on what question you're asking the cards. and things like that. So kind of keep that in mind again when the card is in this lovely upright position. Um, and so here in a second, we will move on to the card in reverse. Alrighty, so moving on with the card in reversed here, meaning upside down. Again, and we are still doing the Nine of Needles. And again, I provided the upside down imaging as well of what a more traditional sword card may look like for those of you who may be using a traditional deck. Um, Before going into this card reversed, this may be a trigger warning for some, pending again where you're at. So just be mindful if you're going through a hard time. Just be careful. So typically, when this card is in reversed, this is where you're really looking into your inner self. Sometimes this can be linked to like depression. So that's what I mean by like trigger warning. Keywords, trauma, despair, paranoia, escape, self-hatred. And so what that means is that you may be just really struggling. I kind of wanted to use those words first before reading out of the guidebook, just again as kind of that warning to those who may be having a hard time. And so reading from the guidebook in reversed, has your confidence been dealt a blow recently? If you're feeling low, you may be your own biggest bully. Start focusing on your positive qualities instead of fixating on perceived negative ones. A shift in perspective is what's needed to get you out of despair. And so, yes, like I said, this card in reverse can be linked more so to like your inner self. Like I said, if you're depressed, you may be hating yourself, body dysphoria, things like that. But it's also a way to kind of take whatever displeasure or have you and try to kind of turn that around to kind of help you find tools to come out of that. And so when the card's in reverse, kind of think of it as you being a negative Nancy. You may just be being your worst enemy, your own nightmare, and you're just getting in your own way. Um, Again, like I said, this card can be related to past trauma that may be kind of trying to come up. So if you dealt with anything in the past where you've had a bad altering such and such happen and you still haven't fully dealt with whatever may have happened to you in the past, sometimes it can sneak up and basically bite you in the ass. And so this card may be giving you that warning of, hey, you're about to get that sting, so be prepared. And you kind of want to make sure you're not dwelling on that. And I know that can be really hard pending where you're at in your recovery. But you want to try to take those steps to move forward and to remove yourself from dwelling on the past with any type of moving forward from any type of situation or these feelings. It can take some time, so keep that in mind. But you definitely want to keep finding those steps to move yourself forward. Again, find a support system if you need to. If you need to seek out professional help, do so. You want to try to find somebody that you can help relieve some of your burdens on, so that way you are having that support and you're able to find out what's real versus fake, and try to not necessarily be a negative Nancy, but what I like to call a positive Paul. You want to try to stay positive. Again, see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so, like the reverse card, or like the upright card, the reverse card, again, you kind of want to face that fear while staying present, but also, try to find your flow, that happy medium, that communication to yourself to move forward. Again, looking back at the needles cards being, associated with the element of air and communication, movement. So kind of keep that in mind. And when pulling these cards, whether reversed or upside down, upright, normal, however you want to say it, you kind of have to take into account when you pull a card, it may not necessarily be for you. You may be asking a generalized question. Maybe for yourself, for a friend, and you can have that answered. Now, obviously, if you're pulling it for a friend, you may not know the entire scenario, but you can give them the advice of, hey, I see you may be going through something in your life. Let's take some steps to be positive. What, how are you feeling? How can we get out of this feeling? Like those types of things. So again, just kind of keep that in mind. And I hope I'm really explaining the cards good. Just because upright versus reversed, I keep getting confused when I'm talking, but that's okay. It happens sometimes. But I really hope that, this short video has helped you guys kind of understand these cards a little bit. And again, with this example, if it resonates with you, then definitely, feel free to reach out to me, or, again, seek help if needed. And we can just kind of go from there on, what we need to do moving forward. I think that conducts the end of today's quote unquote tarot lesson. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I hope that the little platform setup that I've tried out this time around that you guys are liking. So let me know your thoughts there. We will continue with Tarot Sundays next week, where we go into one more suit card of the minors, and then we will move into the majors after that. I'm not sure if I really discussed the major versus minor yet, so I'll make sure I touch base on that in the next video as well. Stay tuned. I will be having a Beltane episode come out, and I'm also going to be doing like a story time episode where I talk about my very first ever witchy workshop and live virtual event. And then I am also still working on having my very first co-host or guest star on the blog as well. So stay tuned. Hopefully, if this goes well, I can continue to do episodes like that. And again, let me know how you guys feel about this setup, if it works well, what changes you think needs to be done. In the meantime, you can check me out on Instagram at snightmare22. I have a Twitter, which is also snightmare22. And I also have a Discord called the At the Pumpkin Patch. I will provide all those details in the description below. I haven't done it in a while, but I also do have a Twitch channel as well, which is Sally Nightmare 22. There is a few saved videos on there, and people I recommend watching. I'm working on updating that page since I have not actually done a live stream in quite some time. I did used to do gaming over there, but right now that has kind of been on hold. But if you still want to check it out for future dates, when I do get back up and running, you guys will already be there. All right, guys, thanks again so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.